You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Saturday, April 26th. Today, we got the final day of the NFL draft, and the 49ers had a plethora of picks. So we're going to discuss those here today. And of course, all the picks that the 49ers made in this draft, because they had 11 picks and they made all of them. So joining me to talk about those picks is Eric Crocker. Croc, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Long day at a track meet, but still tuning into what the 49ers had going on. Still tuning into the whole Shedeur Sanders fiasco, but obviously tapped in, watching film while I'm at the track meet on who these guys are that the 49ers drafted.
Croc's a real football guy. Like, at a track meet, watching film, you gotta love it. That's why he's on the show today. Good to have you back on the show, Croc. So let's go over who the 49ers drafted today on day 3. They started off in round 4, CJ West, then followed by Justin Watkins of Ole Miss, then a running back. You know, Kyle had to get his running back. He got Justin James from Oregon. And then in round 5, he also got a safety out of Kansas State. I'm blanking on his name, Marquise Siegel. And then Curtis Rourke out of Indiana, Connor Colby, guard out of Iowa. And lastly, the final pick of the NFL draft was a kind of like exciting special teams player. That would be the wide receiver from Montana, Junior Bergen. So just give me your overall thoughts on day 3 of the draft, Croc. Like, what do you think the focus was today? Because we knew day 1 and day 2, it was defense.
Yeah, no, and the 49ers definitely, they drafted a lot of defensive guys. They started out day 3, drafted more defensive guys and until, added a few skill guys and obviously the quarterback. And I was asking you before we come on, like, hey, this is a guy that Roor, he played with a torn ACL. When is he going to be healthy? Or is this going to be a redshirt season for him? Sounds like he's saying that he should be healthy around training camp. So that's cool. That's a guy that my co-host on Locked On 49ers, Brian Peacock, was super, super high on. And we're talking about during the season. Like, we're not even talking about draft season, but he's watching them almost like I did with Mac Jones. I remember watching Mac Jones. This was before any talks of him potentially being a first-round pick. I think this was before his senior year had even started. But I was telling everybody, hey, keep an eye on Mac Jones. Like, he's a very Kyle Shanahan-style quarterback. Just, when you think of Kirk Cousins and what that looks like. And with Rourke, kind of same thing, where, man, he's a pocket passer and throws with good touch and does a lot of really good things. Obviously, he's tough being able to play on the torn ACL. So that was an interesting one there. Not sure, I haven't watched any film on, the Iowa guy or the Montana kid. It was kind of hard to find some stuff initially on him. But overall, interesting draft by the 49ers. Defensively, it felt like maybe there's a shift in how they want to play defense. Like, this has been a team on the defensive line that has, especially in the interior, getting like penetrating guys. And they almost went more stout. Now, I'm not mad at that at all. That's what I love. That's what I've been wanting the 49ers to do. Get big guys. Let's stop the run. Let's make that an emphasis, even if it's a guy that can only play 2 downs. Do you draft that guy in the second round? I don't know. But I do like their assertiveness to make sure that they really address an area that I feel like has been weak for a while. Like, teams just being able to run right at the 49ers. So get big and get stout in the middle. They drafted several guys that do that. But that may mean that there's a slight philosophy shift. And hopefully maybe somebody asked Chris Kasurk about that, because this has been a defensive line where they've been coached up to penetrate, get vertical right now. I don't know if that's some of the guys that they drafted, but they definitely, if there is a shift, are going to be much more stout up front.
Yeah, I mean, they addressed needs both from the positional standpoint and from looking at their weaknesses the prior season. And that most definitely was run defense. That was something clearly that they recognized in themselves and were going to prioritize in this draft. And I'd say they did that successfully. But Croc, we got some news that just came in a few minutes ago before we went live here. Apparently, Malik Mustafa, just days after the 49ers season finale, it was discovered that he re-injured his ACL, the same one that he tore back in 2022. So he had surgery. His return is unknown, but the hope is he will be back around mid-season. That is per Nick Wagner, 49ers beat writer. Wow. I was not expecting that. I guess like the 49ers taking a safety makes even more sense, but this is a big blow.
That's tough. That's hard news right there to hear. And off of a terrific rookie season, you were hoping like, okay, let's continue to build on that. To hear that they discovered an injury, like, what do you mean discovered it? Like, it just happened out of thin air? Like, when did this happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Days after season finale?
Makes it seem like after the season is when they discovered it. So they knew going into the draft, and they've known this whole offseason that he retore it. And yeah, I guess they knew about the surgery. Obviously, that's tough. That, like you said, though, I'm almost surprised they didn't address safety earlier in this class, given this news. I mean, they have Jair Brown, who didn't have a great season last year. But aside from that, they got Siren Neal, Richie Grant, Jason Pinnock, a lot of guys who I don't know if we can completely trust to be starters. So yeah, I mean, definitely a blow. The 49ers.
Siren Neal, he has played a lot of games.
Yeah,
he's played a lot of games, started games.
Veteran.
He's been around for a while. Probably leaning a little bit more towards like special teams kind of being his thing, but he could fill in. But with the unknown with Mustafa, I don't think you look to somebody that could just fill in. I think you're looking for someone who potentially can be a starter. And maybe it is one of the guys that they drafted. The interesting thing with Siegel is, like, he's not a true safety. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do it. He definitely has a size. I mean, he's hovering around 6 feet tall, hovering around 200 pounds. Tested through the roof, athletically. But how they played him was more that of a nickel. Played like a little bit more in the slot. It almost reminded me of Jimmy Ward coming to the Niners, where it's like, oh, he's drafted, he's a safety, or he's whatever. And it's like, oh, he's a cover 4 guy, he's matching guys vertically. You see him playing in the slot. And Siegel, he's like more of a guy that's playing in the slot, almost like a star player. Some people call it like like a hornet. It's kind of like a versatile player who can cover, who can hit, who's going to fill in the run game. And there was a lot of that on his film. So I'm excited to actually see kind of how they utilize him. But I mean, maybe his role kind of has to increase early on. I am with this news, again, something that they've known, surprised that maybe they didn't do something to get like a 1-year guy at safety, right? Where they just go and sign a guy for, $5 million 1 year, and you say, all right, like, this makes it so that Malik Mustafa can kind of come back on his own pace, as opposed to being like, we needed a safety without knowing he was hurt, because kind of like up and down with Jair Brown, and you didn't address that in free agency, and then now we find out about this. It's kind of interesting with about the 49ers doing that.
Yeah, and I do remember Matt Mayoko saying that the 49ers after the draft could look to make a trade for someone. He just kind of said in general, not one specific, position or anything. And of course, how the draft went for them would dictate probably what position that would be. But I gotta wonder if maybe safety would be one that they would look to bring someone else in for sure, like either a free agent who, like I said, I mean, they've brought in a number of different free agents, right? So I don't know if they're really looking to bring someone else in via trade, but I'm surprised because the depth right now is just not great. I was expecting Malik Mustafa to be a starter and one that I would be pretty excited for. But we're here to talk about the draft. So let's get into who the 49ers selected today, starting with Indiana defensive tackle, nose tackle CJ West. So the good, I mean, he's stout. A lot of people compare him to DJ Jones because he's got that like shorter stature and he's thick, 6'1", 316 pounds. He's got a good first step. He's explosive. He could split the double teams. So I see like some similarities in what he could do well, where he could line up as to Alfred Collins. They both have a lot of versatility. I think the 49ers probably envision him lining up over the center more so than not. He's going to be that nose tackle guy. So what do you think about this move, Croc?
Oh, I like it. Now, this is more of a guy that they've really liked, right? You talk about kind of DJ Jones and what he is. He's a penetrator, a guy with, quick, explosive, really good first step. They talk about run defender, right? And when you're getting comp to guys like DJ Jones or Poona Ford, right? It's that kind of guy that is going to win with leverage, win with quickness right now. And that's more of what they're going after as opposed to Alfred. But yeah, no, I like this. And I got a message from my guy, Legger Duzebold, and I was on the Jets with him, and he actually spent some time with the 49ers as well and understands, what Robert Saleh is looking for because he played under him. And he said, this is more like what the 49ers do and go after and this type of guy as opposed to what they drafted in the second round. So this was right here. It was on par with what the 49ers are typically looking for from a defensive tackle.
Yeah, just those thick guys who can stop the run. More of those as they started out day 2 and or day 3, I should say. And he's athletic, 9.15 RAS score, so that bodes well for him. Again, like he's on the shorter end, so but that doesn't bother me because again, they've had guys like this before, DJ Jones, and this fits a specific role that they've had before that they've kind of been missing since DJ Jones, to be honest. So I think this made the most sense of anyone who is available on day 3 for them. So CJ West, a good pick. I wonder though if he's going to be more of a rotational guy, just because like I think there is some overlap with Alfred Collins a little bit. Like you mentioned, they are different, but just as far as their alignments go, maybe they see him as rotating a little bit more. Do you kind of get that sense? Like, how do you see him fitting in with the guys that they already have? Now they got CJ West, Alfred Collins, Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott, Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis. So they got some dudes. And so how do you feel like they'll rotate?
Heading into the draft, I said the 49ers got to go D-line heavy because Elliott, you have Kevin Givens. Those feel like more rotation type guys as opposed to guys that is just going to 100% be starters for you, right? And you like them. Look, listen, I don't know if there's a bigger Kevin Givens fan or someone that appreciates Kevin Givens as much as I do. But as a starter, I'm not looking for him to start. So you go and get guys like this. And I do feel like although they are both kind of, bigger, stout guys, I think their strengths like complement each other. So I do think, especially early downs, run downs, I think these are two guys that can be out there at the same time. I think West might be somebody that is more of a third down player for you as well, as opposed to Alfred Collins, who, pass rush game, he may not be there. And then even with Michael Williams, he can slide and rush from the 3-tech and passing situations, which, when you think about when the 49ers have been really good there, they had guys like, Amenahu.
And Armstead. He had
that or Armstead,
too,
right?
Yeah.
That kind of just really looking for that kind of elephant end that can slide inside and play 3-tech and really disrupt things from the interior on obvious passing situations. So, I really like how they did that. But yeah, I do think these two guys complement each other well.
Yeah. So. Obviously, the 49ers investing this much in their defensive line, which they needed. They needed bodies. CJ West and Alfred Collins, could theoretically be started next to each other. So, man, I'm excited about this defensive line very suddenly. I mean, Robert Saleh really put a stamp on this draft for sure with the first few picks of this draft. It was all defense. Let's talk about the next player. This was the first offensive player that the 49ers got. They finally let Kyle Shanahan back into the war room, and he decided to get Ole Miss wide receiver Jordan Watkins, who has speed. He is fast, 4.37 speed. He does well tracking the ball. He has a good feel for zone. I think he's going to be a slot guy in the NFL, just given his size. So that kind of makes me wonder, okay, you drafted Jacob Cowan last year as well. He's a speed guy too. He's a slot receiver as well. Which one do you kind of prefer, Kyle? We know that Cowan didn't get a lot of opportunities last year, kind of maybe he was in the doghouse. I don't know. But now you bring in Jordan Watkins. So I'm wondering just how the depth chart is kind of going to fall between both of these guys. But obviously, I like the upside of Watkins, having led the SEC in receiving touchdowns. Quarterbacks have a high passer rating targeting him. And he has some punt return experience too, which is always adds some nice value to this team as well. But I know, Craig, you said you watched him. So when you watch him, what are some things that jump out?
Right away, clearly the vertical speed, and you watch Jackson Dart sometimes just say, excuse me. So what they did was something that I'm actually going to be our offensive coordinator this year at my high school, right? And one thing that I really want to do, hopefully nobody that I'm coaching against is watching this, and if they are, oh well, you got to stop it still. But you go 3-by-1, because most times, and especially in high school, you go 3-by-1, teams are going to single up that solo receiver and roll their coverage to trips. So for me, what I'm going to do is say, all right, you single it up. I'm going to attack your solo receiver or defensive back. We're going to see how good he is. So you put a guy that's either a speedster or your best route runner, and he got to win on an island. So if they're off coverage, hey, we're going to run at you really hard. We're going to sit that route down, and we're going to throw a 5-yard pass to you. Now make them miss in space, right? But if they're pressed, and we're going to throw that go ball. And I watched Jackson Dart and Ole Miss say, all right, hey, we're going to go trips left. We're going to load up, or we're going to find ways to single Watkins up and take vertical shots. And when you watch him against Arkansas, he had a huge game, and over 200 yards, like 4 touchdowns. Like, it was a wild game for him. But just watching some of the ways that he is able to win, he was winning vertically. And when I think of receivers, and I think of outside receivers, and there we go. Look at that concept, man. Let's single them up, throw the ball down the field, down the right sideline, and leave some space for your quarterback to really be able to fade that ball to him. He did a terrific job there. That's a terrific concept right there. But with him and what he does, man, I think he can play outside. He can play inside. I think with Kyle Shanahan, and he said this years ago, what makes a receiver able to play outside? And he's like, man, it's just the ability to win vertically. So let's say Trent Taylor, right? We'll use Trent Taylor, for example. Well, Trent Taylor, not big, not fast, right? He can run, not fast. Probably not a guy that you can play on the outside. He's going to kind of be more delegated to the slot. Even a guy like Deebo Samuel, and his acceleration was crazy, but he was never just a pure burner down the sideline. So it was a little bit harder for him to consistently be more of a true outside type receiver. But Watkins, he can run, and he's a vertical threat on any given play. So this is definitely a guy who I think doesn't just have to play outside. In the slot. I think it's a guy that can win inside. Matter of fact, outside. Matter of fact, I think he's probably more useful on the outside, because watching him in the slot and watching him like just after the catch, he's not like super loose with the hips. And I don't think he's a guy that really makes guys miss in space. So I think he's best suited to kind of play outside consistently. And that's not to say you can't line him up inside. That's not to say you can't motion him and do different things with him. But being able to win outside with his vertical speed, and he has enough size at 5'11", almost 200 pounds. I like him. I liked a lot of what I saw. I watched a few games and was saying a good use of speed vertically for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Arkansas game, 254 yards, 5 touchdowns in that one. And as we're seeing here, like very much heavily featured in that game. And that's great context. What you said about how Kyle Shanahan sees a guy playing outside versus inside. That it's not so much about the
real quick,
size.
there's a couple different ways you can win vertically. Right? You can win with
Yeah,
speed, like he has, or you can win with size, like like Mike Evans or something, right? Where Mike Evans
right.
probably ran 4.5 something, but man, I can win with size and positioning vertical, so I don't have to be delegated to just playing in a slot. And with him, obviously, he's not 6'5" like Mike Evans, but he definitely has the speed factor to be able to win vertically consistently at any level that he plays at.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think a lot of people, including myself, like will just kind of assume, hey, he's this size, he's kind of small. He's going to have to be a slot receiver, right? But to your point, and probably Kyle's as well, is like if he's got the speed, he can beat outside corners. Like, and that's really all it takes. And we saw it here in just these small clips of him. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll see what the 49ers, what their vision is for him. And if we see him lining up outside, that definitely would make him different already than Jacob Cowing. So that'll be exciting, especially with Brandon Ayuk. We don't know when he's going to be ready exactly. Probably mid-season, maybe week 1. That would be like best case scenario, right? Like if he's ready week 1, first couple weeks of the season, I'm not setting my watch to that. So yeah, it's good to have some of these other guys in the mix. Let's get to the next one here. So Oregon, Jordan James. So this was interesting. So Dane Brugler had him as his RB7 in his draft guide. There was a couple guys who got drafted before him that were ranked, a little further back in that draft guide. And so Brugler thinks very highly of Jordan James. I see the fit. Like he works in his own scheme at Oregon. And just watching some clips on him, I haven't watched like the full film, but like some clips that I saw, you instantly see his ability to make guys miss. Like he is slippery, in between, the guards and in between tackles, and he works well through contact. That's what I see. And also another thing, and I said this on my breakdown with Rob earlier, I was like, I gotta knock on some wood. But I'm going to say it. He didn't have any fumbles in college either, which I think is big as well. Jadon Blue, who got drafted just right after him to the Cowboys, he had like 9 fumbles in his career, right? Another guy who would have fit this offense, but Jordan James takes care of the football. He's good in pass pro. He protects the quarterback as well. So I like this upside. You don't like the speed doesn't go crazy or anything. But I can see how he fits in. He'd be nice in like short yardage situations and things like that.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they drafted him because I mean, obviously he's not this big back, right? He's like
Right.
5'9", 205. And I'm not saying that's a little guy. That's pretty stout, but in comparison to the guys that are tackling him and hitting him, he's a smaller guy. And then he didn't run very well. He didn't test well athletically at all.
No.
And for a 49ers team, if you are looking inside zone, he could see the holes, he could hit the holes, and has really good vision with that. But we are used to seeing 49ers go after guys that could be a little bit more home run threats with how they block things up.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he's that. But I did watch a lot of Oregon games, and he is terrific. I mean, he's a guy that plays the running back position very well. He's sudden, he's able to catch. He did a lot of really good things. It was clear to me between him and, let's say, Bucky Irvin the year before, like Bucky Irvin was like the better of the two. But Jordan James, I think he's going to be a solid running back at the NFL level. But again, if you're looking for a game breaker, he's not that.
I love Bucky Irving. And funny enough, like Irving's testing wasn't great coming out of the draft either. But I love Bucky Irving's game. I do agree. Like you don't see that home run threat ability from him. In fact, this is a note from the draft guide here. One of 233 carries in 2024 resulted in a play of more than 25 yards. So it's not a lot. And
that's at the collegiate level where
exactly
sometimes you play opponents where you are able to really dominate them up front.
Yeah.
And it's like at no point, I mean, or one time in the whole season, like you break off a play of 20 plus yards. That's kind of a shocking stat at the college level.
I mean, he's good in those short yardage situations, like 31 career touchdowns. So in the red zone, they used him quite a bit. But anytime, like he, like look at this, like if he gets past the first level of the defense, he's gonna get got by someone else because he just doesn't have that breakaway speed, just like some other guys in this offense has. So he's definitely a change of pace, like both literally and figuratively for for this 49ers offense. But they got speedsters, so I guess like from that sense, it's okay because it's something different that they don't have in their room currently, especially after they traded away Jordan Mason. But Krog, let's get back to the safety discussion. And yes, for anyone that hadn't heard or anyone that's checking in and didn't catch us talking about it towards the beginning of the show, Malik Mustafa retore his ACL, the same one he tore in 2022. The 49ers have apparently known about this since like the end of the season, and he had surgery. His timeline is uncertain right now. And so the 49ers going into this draft very much knew that. And they did draft a safety today in Marquise Siegel. And so I know you've watched him. In the clips that I've watched, I mean, I definitely like what he brings. He's got speed. There's some nice upside there, I think.
Not definitely, man. I mean, this is a guy that had good feet, good patience. Again, he's listed as a safety, but he played more in the nickel spot, at least in all the games that I watched. I thought he had good feet. I thought that the vertical speed was there, even though in their defense, he didn't get tested vertically a lot. Kind of reminded me of, was it Petrie? The Baylor nickel? Yeah, Jalen Petrie. Kind of like that, where the way they wall off certain things and what they're being asked to do, you don't see him have to run vertically a whole lot with guys. But he had a lot of ability there. And then just watching him, just tackle and play in space. Now, there was one time I did see him make a very clear business decision on a tackle that I felt like he should have made. But I saw him throw his body around plenty of times to have confidence that, this is a guy that will put his body on the line for the betterment of the team, whether it's on the goal line, whether it's out in the open field. He did a really good job of that. So I'm just excited to see the 49ers get some super athleticism on the back end, because I think that's something that's been lacking. They've gotten guys that are, steady football players, high IQ and all that, but where's the guy that can just do some freakish stuff for you? Not a super high draft pick, but this is a guy, I think he started off at North Dakota State, I believe. Yeah. Before transferring to Kansas State. So, awesome stuff, awesome stories like that. I root for those type of underdogs. But yeah, in the film that you're watching right now, you can see some of the positions that he played, and notice where his eyes are on that throw. He's not thinking about a vertically pushing route at all. He's working more of the underneath stuff. So I would like to see just, when he gets away from this Kansas State film, what kind of just man coverage ability that he consistently have. But overall, I didn't see much negatives in the film that I watched.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the versatility is going to be something that the 49ers love. Like they covet that no matter what position you play, right? And, for the secondary, he said himself, like he could play free safety, strong safety, nickel corner, dime. And so former corner, full-time corner. So he's got that going for him. He's got that experience, special teams upside as well. I think Croc, like along with the speed that he has. He might be thrust into a bigger role than maybe he was even expecting going into it. And for anyone wondering like why the 49ers kept it a secret that Malik Mustafa tore his ACL, maybe the 49ers just didn't want teams to know that they would be targeting a safety in this class. I don't know. That being said, they didn't even target it that early. It was the 5th round. So I don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to tip their hand too much as to what the plans might be. They didn't want people to freak out. I don't know. It is all a little strange, but they got a safety.
Yeah, I am surprised, again, that they just didn't make it enough of a priority. The moment that injury happened, I would have been thinking, okay, we got to get a veteran in here and let's throw, $5-6 million at someone, bring them in here, solidify that safety room. And now Mustafa doesn't have to rush back, because I personally just thought that the 49ers try to do something to upgrade the other safety position where Jair Brown has been playing. And that's not to say that Brown can't
Exactly.
be a good player, but I don't know. It's kind of just been up and down. I saw them pull a guy off a cruise ship to come in and play over Jair Brown in the postseason. So uh, that situation has been kind of weird. Maybe they feel very confident about where they're at right now, but adding a legit veteran starter, I thought would have been a priority if they would known all along that this guy Mustafa may miss some time.
Yeah, and so now the safety room is looking like Jair Brown, Richie Grant, Jason Pinnock. They got Quindle Johnson, Jalen Mahoney, George Odom still, and Siren Neal could play some safety as well, right? And Marquis Siegel. So there's that. So we'll see if they bring anyone else in now that the draft is over. Maybe we see a trade. Not sure, but I'm with you, Croc. I am surprised they didn't make it a bigger priority. Let's get to the next 5th round pick that the 49ers made. Or was this the first 7th? I think it might have been the first 7th, actually. This was Curtis. Yes, it was Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. And, Kyle Shanahan, along with running backs, he's always going to get himself a quarterback in almost every draft. So it was this one for the 49ers. And so people were a little surprised by this one just because, there's still some talent on the board at this point. Everyone's clamoring for an offensive lineman. They get Curtis instead. But look, you see how this is very much a Kyle Shanahan pick, right? I think a couple things that Kyle loves out of his quarterbacks, which a couple of these are things even Jimmy Garoppolo did well, like the quick release. He hangs there in the pocket. He has a better deep ball than like Jimmy or some other quarterbacks, and so he drops some passes in the bread basket. All right, he's got some pretty good downfield accuracy. He's tough. He's played with a lot of injuries. Right now, I'm putting that in the good category that he's tough. But I do have questions about all the injuries that he's faced in his career. Right now, he's recovering from an ACL tear himself. So the 49ers dealing with that. And, the reports are that he will be cleared by training camp. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But what do you like about Rourke? I know you said that this was one of Peacock's favorite players.
Well, I'll start off with what I don't like. Man, that helmet and face mask, it's atrocious. And hopefully he doesn't bring that anywhere near San Francisco. Now, that has nothing to do with how he plays. And yeah, this is a guy that Peacock brought to my attention during the college football season. And he was really excited about just what he brings. I think the good in the notes that you posted there are all of the things that Brian Peacock was able to identify in the process of just watching them. I don't even know why Peacock was watching Indiana, to be honest. But he's watching Indiana and he comes again. He's like, Croc, you gotta see this Curtis Rourke guy. Like, I really like him. He's a perfect Kyle Shanahan type quarterback. Like, that's what Kyle Shanahan likes. And then I watched him in the playoff game, and it wasn't very pretty. I was like, oh, he saved a great opportunity right here to look bad and make you look bad. He's like, yeah, but he was like, no, he's a good quarterback. And it's funny because he mentioned him to my best friend, who I call my brother, Donald, who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Mm-hmm. And Donald wanted Pittsburgh to take Shedeur Sanders at 20. And Donald was very upset that they didn't get him. And he's like, oh, we'll never get a chance to get him now. He's going to get drafted in the 2nd round. And Peacock, and we're at John Chapman's draft party that he had. And Peacock said, oh, don't worry. Later in this draft, maybe in the 6th, 7th round, you can get Curtis Rourke. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in this class. And it's not the Steelers that gets him. It's the San Francisco 49ers. So if Peacock is on board with him, I am on board with him. I am not on board with the ACL injury that he played with. But I do like just the toughness. And I dealt with that last season. High school football coaching at Edison. Our quarterback tore his ACL week 2. We had no idea that he tore his ACL. We knew that there was something wrong. Clearly, it kind of limited his mobility. He would get hit sometimes a certain way, and he'd stay down, have to come out for a couple of plays. He'd get back in there. And then after the season, he ended up getting an MRI, and we found out that he had a torn ACL. That was something where it's like, wow. Like, I told him, I said, dude, you're a tough SOB, because we had no idea that you were playing on a torn ACL. So will he need the medical red shirt? I see someone in the chat saying he'll medical red shirt. Maybe he won't have to, if he got this worked on in January, really the ACL, it's a 6 to 9 month recovery. So there is a chance that come training camp, he'll be able to get out there and throw the ball around. Um, in in the NFL, or at the quarterback position, it doesn't require the most movement, especially for someone whose game isn't predicated on that. So, we kind of saw this with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's the mental hurdle more than anything. And I remember
Yeah.
seeing that with Jimmy,
Yep.
the first preseason game against the Denver Broncos, and he was kind of like throwing and he didn't want his leg to get hit. That's the biggest hurdle I feel like for a quarterback. But I mean, this is a guy, again, his game isn't predicated on running and cutting and doing all those things, but definitely want to see if he has improved pocket mobility and prevent from turning ACL.
Yeah, again, right? And yeah, I mean, his mechanics being inconsistent was already something that, you sometimes see. And so, yeah, the mental hurdle will definitely be a big thing when he does come back. But I'm fine with the 49ers taking a flyer in the 7th round. Like, they do that. Like we said, every draft. So I'm fine with it. If he redshirts for the season, it'll be fine as well. Like, he's just going to be the backup. Like, so I'm not going to lose sleep over this one. I see why Kyle Shanahan liked him. I do have concerns, of course, as far as the injury history goes. He's had other injuries like shoulder injury, as well as, the ACL, other knee injuries. So yeah, there's something to keep an eye on, but I'm fine with the move altogether. Now,
One of the things that you put up there was that he was a one read quarterback.
yeah,
And I will say that, sometimes, like, because I think people, I don't know if they just look at the quarterback's head and then he's thrown in that direction. But I know with my guys, we'll have concepts and they're reading a certain guy. So they'll read the safety, right? Or they'll read the nickel or they'll read the backer, right? And based off what he does, that kind of dictates where the quarterback throws the ball to. So I think some people, they'll see a guy turn and look here, and then they make the throw in that direction. And it's like, oh, it's one read. But really, it's two options off of that one read, if that makes sense. So it's not like, oh, I'm looking right at this guy because I'm only throwing to this guy. No, I'm looking in this direction because I'm reading this guy. And based off of what he does, that determines if I throw to him, or if I have to come to my check down.
Yeah, I think people take like first read and automatically see it as a bad thing, but it's kind of just like the offense that Indiana ran that kind of made it so he didn't have to go through his progressions all that much. So that's the note that I saw on the draft guide, is he wasn't asked to work through many progressions in Indiana offense. But like prior to Indiana, he played 3-4 seasons at Ohio. So, he has other experience there with a different offense that, you guys could check out as well on him. The final 49ers draft pick was Junior Bergen from Montana. This one, like, I'm for a 7th round pick, I'm like oddly excited about it, because you see what he can bring as a return man, like super high upside there. 8 career return touchdowns. In 2024 alone, he had 3 touchdowns on 10 returned punts. That's a pretty good ratio right there. He averaged 16.7 yards per punt return. Again, I kind of see him as being more slot receiver depth, but he has a speed. I mean, we're talking about speed earlier and how that could, lend itself well to being a guy on the outside too. 4.53 speed, not as fast as, some other options the 49ers have on the team. But again, I think the special team.
That actually may be one of the slower options aside from Juwan Jennings. But obviously, Juwan Jennings has much more size.
Yes, exactly. So, like, I mean, for a guy who's not as athletically gifted, you got to have some other upside to you, and that is the special teams upside for him. You watched him at all?
No, not yet. I think I put in stuff trying to find Montana. Montana State kept popping up, not Montana Grizzlies. But I mean, just to have that kind of production in the return game, I think that's what the 49ers are drafting him for, or at least bringing him in to be able to compete as a returner. One thing in the NFL, especially with special teams coaches, what they want to see is someone who is sure-handed. So sure-handed, sees the field well. NFL, because again, he's not this fast guy. I don't expect him to just rip off, a bunch of returns for touchdowns at the NFL level. But for the most part, it's about flipping field position. So if he's a guy that can catch the ball, consistently, he's not muffing any punts, and he can pick up 9 to 11 yards per return. Well, that drastically changes field position for the 49ers and ultimately can help lead to points. So will he be a dynamic guy, at the NFL level? I don't know. I have a hard time kind of seeing that. Smaller in stature and not the fastest guy, but clearly has special teams value as a returner. So that's where he'll compete to make this roster.
Yeah, and that's something I think the 49ers desperately are looking for, right? Like they've been trying to get guys the last couple of years who have some of that experience. And so they added a couple more on the list to compete for that spot. So it'll be exciting. He'll get a shot to compete there, and so that's nice for him. But yeah, Big Sky Conference. It's not exactly like NFL level across the board. So we'll see how he does with this team in like rookie mini camp and training camp and all that, how he looks. But Croc, from overall, like, I asked you at the top of the show what you thought about the 49ers draft, but like, is there a favorite pick from the 49ers draft that you're just like, man, they really nailed that one?
Probably Alfred Collins, just because he doesn't fit what the 49ers have been doing, as far from a philosophy standpoint. But I've been hoping and praying that the 49ers get a big space eater that's a two-gapper and will demand double teams and be stout versus the run. And I've been hoping they find that guy, and it sounds like they got him. Now, I think overall it's probably on the consensus big board. 49ers, they historically draft guys higher than they are, quote unquote, projected to go. And who knows where these guys are going to go. But the 49ers just do it more than anyone else. But Alfred Collins, for me, again, not quite a scheme fit for what they have been doing, but for what Eric Crocker has been wanting, definitely my favorite pick.
For sure.
I'm going to tell you, I can't tell you how many times I'm just watching these guys, and it's like, you got these guys penetrating, they're getting upfield, but then it's like, man, they're getting kicked out on runs, and the 49ers run game has really been suffering unless you just have somebody who's terrific and talented like Eric Armstead or DeForest Buckner. So just to get that space-eating guy that could be even if it's just two-down guy, because he's not somebody that's going to, reset the line of scrimmage. He might stay at the line of scrimmage, but if he's, demanding doubles and being stout there, what's going to help keep guys like Fred Warner clean? It's going to help keep whoever the hell the 49ers linebackers are, the other guys. There are D winners in those guys. Keep those guys clean so they can knife in and make some big plays, impactful plays in the run game.
Yeah, and it's not just about like absorbing the double teams. Like that's great. He can split them. Like he can get through on his own. He's not just there to free up opportunities for other guys. He can make opportunities for himself, which I think is big because I think they haven't really had that for the last couple years, right? Just someone who can create up the middle on their own. I think Alfred Collins has proven time and time again. You see it all over his tape, like just his ability to shed blocks and get to the play is really impressive. And I actually do want to go back and apologize because I missed Connor Colby. I forgot one of the 7th round picks. I mentioned him at the top, but I didn't have slides for him. The 49ers had so many like picks in the 7th round, and the last 2 were like very close to each other. So I think I just forgot to put Connor Colby and give him some of his slides. But what I will say about him is that coming from that Iowa offensive line, that system, like they very much covet run blocking, right? And so right out the gate, that's something that he's going to be, pretty solid at, I think, for the 49ers. And he's going to be a depth guy, to start out. Anyway, the 49ers like to develop their offensive linemen. They like to let them, marinate in the back, develop them for a couple years, and then they give them that opportunity to maybe compete. So that's what I see for Connor Colby. And I think also like he has some versatility to offer that I think, 49ers obviously also like. And so he has value, I think, on this team and will have some value as a depth piece. He's ranked as Dane Brugler's OG 20. So he did have a free agent draft grade on him. But I think he'll probably just be a solid career backup, 50 career starts, mostly at guard for him. So we'll see how he looks on the 49ers.
Yeah.
And you get a grade 3 cone, which of course 49ers love as well.
They love that. Yeah.
They love that, like, more than anything. I do want to ask you, Croc, because, like, I thought that the 49ers would get a corner on day 3, but they actually ended up getting the corner on day 2, and that was Upton Stout. So I got to get your thoughts on Upton Stout. I watched him last night, and I definitely see, some things pop out when I watched him. And this was just, like, some of the descriptions that I had other people say about him, but, like, you see that in this film as well. Just like the speed jumps out. He plays way bigger than his size. I think that's a nice thing about him. And he's pretty good at run defending too. He wants to be involved in the play. Even if he's across the field, he will come over with that speed and try to get in on a tackle if he can. So I like that about him. What do you think about him though?
One, just again, trying to figure out the 49ers draft strategy. Diamador Lenore, he's the guy that clearly has inside, outside versatility for the 49ers. But I think where he makes his money and how you pay him is kind of like, he'll be one of the higher paid nickels in the game. And I think he's terrific there. And I think he has the most value there. Coaching high school football, I have what we call, a star player. And your star is kind of like that nickel, that slot, but he's kind of everything for you. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of a will linebacker. He's a safety. He's a corner. He's whatever you need him to be on that specific play. And I got to thinking, like, man, I'm not going to have Dylan next year. He's heading into his senior year. I just got over here as the head coach this season. And I'm like, man, it would be nice to have him for another year. I value that position. It's a very difficult position. And Diamador Lenore plays it very high. So when they go and they draft Upton Stout on day 2, well, he is a nickel for sure, and he's physical and he's aggressive. And I see the comps to Kwan Williams floating out, and I'm like, yeah, I see that in his game, and I like that aspect of his game. Not a big guy, and he's probably not going to play on the outside as a cornerback. So what is their draft philosophy there? Like how does that mesh with what you are doing? Especially since drafting nickels, it usually takes time. Like, how many times have you seen a nickel come in and just start day 1 in the slot? Right. A lot of times there is like a transition period for that. So I'm curious to see how he ends up, or not how he ends up playing, but what his role ends up being. But that was one of those right there where I'm like, was that the best use of resources at that time? And not to say he's not going to be good, but just looking at the 49ers roster, we saw mocks with, 49ers taking an outside cornerback. I thought we may see more
there's
of that.
A few. They brought in a bunch for 30 visits, I think there was interest in Quincy Riley, Dorian Strong, Darian Porter. There's a bunch of guys. And some of them did have inside-outside versatility, which again, but some of them didn't. So I was also wondering, what exactly are they looking for? You already have you have a couple guys who could play inside and outside. Renardo Green can play the nickel as well. So, yeah, you're adding another guy in the mix. So it is interesting. Are they trying to free up Lenore from playing nickel, even though that's always best, because nickel's just so hard, and to find a guy that's so good at it Lenore, I don't know why you would want to mess with that, but maybe Lenore wants to be more outside, so I don't know. But he
already got paid.
He got paid.
Usually you want to play outside because it's like, well, typically outside corners get paid more than nickels, but now he's paid, so it's like, hey man, I'm really good at this and I'm good at playing in space and I'm feisty and I'm willing to tackle and I take the ball away. Obviously, he could play outside as well if you want. I mean, you can start him every game on the outside. But man, that nickel is sneaky the hardest position to play on defense. Everybody says, oh, cornerback, hardest position to play.
Yeah.
But if we want to be more specific, it's that nickel because guys have a two-way go. The space is already typically created. You have to run fit. So it's like I'm telling you, I'm a linebacker. It's one of those underrated positions like a tight end. Like a tight end is a run blocker, so he's an offensive tackle sometimes. A tight end is a pass blocker sometimes. A tight end has to catch passes and run after catch. Got to do so much. But when you look at how they're paid, it's like, man, like why am I not valued like a tackle? Why am I not valued like a receiver? You got guys like, let's just say, Brandon Ayuk, and I like Brandon Ayuk, and he's terrific, and he got paid, deserves it, cool. But like, does he deserve 2 times as much money as George Kittle? So like I look at the nickel position like that too, where it's kind of been undervalued by the NFL. But when you have a really good one, you really want to utilize them. So, 49ers, maybe they're just trying to throw in stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and see if they can find somebody that maybe can just give them more versatility with bringing guys in. Maybe somebody be more of a dime defensive back. Or maybe just, hey, we really want Diamondor Lenore to play on the outside, and we like the value of how much we're paying for him more there than putting him in a slot where he'd be one of the higher paid slot guys.
Yep, and I mean it gives them options for sure. So I guess we'll see how they use them. How Saleh kind of plans to use all these different pieces. Because right now, as it stands at corner, they've got Lenore, Bernardo Green, Trey Brown, Darrell Luter, Trey Tomlinson, and then a couple of like secondary guys as well. Upton Stout, of course, Cyron Neal, who could play some safety, some nickel. And Siegel too, like he could also play some different spots in the secondary. So we'll see how all these pieces kind of fit in. But I'm excited about the draft. If you had to give a grade, Croc, like what grade are you giving the 49ers on this draft?
Ooh. It's weird because I look at it 2 different ways, right? I look at, the 49ers, if you just say, hey, what do you need? Say, hey, well, we need a couple of defensive tackles. We need a defensive end. We need a linebacker. We need, a safety. We need, an offensive lineman. Like, I feel like they addressed everything that they needed. But I feel like they leaned a little too heavy on team needs. As opposed to maybe going just best player available in a lot of these spots. So for that reason, I mean, this is kind of a cop-out, but I just give them a flat C. Because there's some good with guys that potentially can have a role as a rookie. But when you look at the way the board fell, I think there were some opportunities to get guys that had a little bit more just ability. So I give them a C. I like it. It's like, okay, cool. You got these guys, but the value on some of them, where maybe there was just better players on the board, maybe not using, you got 11 draft picks, maybe, move up a couple of spots, and they got sniped a couple of times. TJ Sanders, I mean, that probably would have been the guy, I would be curious to know, do they like TJ Sanders more than Alfred Collins? There was offensive tackle, towards the end of the 3rd round. Like, were they interested in him at all? I think he drafted a lot of guys, and we'll see how to use them. But I mean, how many guys do you, from this class? And maybe there's more opportunities this year than the other years past. But how many of them are gonna make the roster?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to give them a B plus or B minus, just because like I do like how they addressed defense right out the gate. I mean, they had to get bodies in there, so it's going to be at the top of the draft that you're going to find some of these better players, and I like the players that they got. I think they got really lucky with Michael Williams. I was surprised they got him at 11. They seem surprised they got him at 11. They thought he'd be going in the top 10 picks. And so, I mean, I was in love with the start of the draft. To me, it did lose some momentum. As soon as I started seeing some of the Kyle picks, I was like, man, it's like, here we go. But I'm with you too on like the value thing. The 49ers do that a lot. Like they're always drafting guys. I mean, I don't know. I have to imagine guys on the top of their board, but it's so far off from the general consensus of some of these guys that other players that I would have liked, that a lot of us would have liked, were still there, and they didn't get them. On offensive line, like, John Lynch did kind of hint that they did get sniped a couple of times on offensive linemen, and they didn't want to force it either by like maybe moving up for some of these guys. So they kept all their picks and they let the chips fall where they did, and they lived with the results. And that was Connor Colby finally in the 7th round that they picked up. But yeah, maybe had they been a little more aggressive, they could have gotten some of those guys that, we think maybe could have been a bigger impact for the team. But I'm cool with it. Like they needed to address defense. They needed to address the run defense, and they absolutely did. So I'm thankful for that. Before we get out of here, just wanted to name just a couple of the UDFAs that the 49ers have signed so far. They got Cincinnati running back Corey Kiner. They got Washington defensive lineman Sebastian Valdez. They got Colorado State guard Drew Moss, and they got BYU cornerback Jacob Robinson. I actually interviewed Jacob Robinson earlier this month. So if you guys, want to get to know him a little bit more, check that out. He did talk about, having good conversations with the 49ers, meeting Diamador Lenore, actually flying to, Santa Clara to meet him because they share the same agent. So just his impressions of him and, how he feels about the potential of getting to work with him, which now, he will. So that one's exciting. And I think there was one more, Mississippi State linebacker Stone Blanton. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, and Husker Isaiah Nair, the wide receiver. I think he's nice. So I'm gonna check all these dudes out. The draft is over, but our work is not done because now we got to watch these guys that we hadn't watched before and give our thoughts on them. So there will be plenty more content like this throughout the week where we'll be breaking down the draft. Croc, thank you so much for joining me today to give your thoughts. Again, good to have you back. We'll have to do this again sometime. I know you're a busy man, but yeah, appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone that tuned in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but Croc's as well. And of course, if you haven't yet, check out Locked On 49ers. Croc and Peacock got some great content as well. They've been breaking down the draft really nicely. So make sure you guys tune into that. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, have a good rest of your Saturday, folks. Peace.